This is another live radio link-up brought to you by the Government Communications, GCIS.
Time has gone 7 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, and it's a very good evening to you. Welcome to our broadcast this evening, brought to you courtesy of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, hand in hand with Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS. My name is Karabolans Stolwana Sabapedi Le Matebele. Ketabela Robalo and Amtideji Mokashonyarena, Yabusho Yalegono, Yona, Wikishe Chwakebaga, Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS. There's the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and we're going to be looking forward to an awesome show this evening, really. And as you know, that last week we did not have a show. We took a bit of a rest. Everybody went on holiday. So last week we did not have a show. My camera people are quite happy about that. I'm not. And trying to do the show by myself, but it did not work really. So I'm quite excited that we're back again, and we're going to be doing this show for you. And this time around, we're talking about an issue that you will probably been hearing about and it's happening around you, and you actually don't know what it entails and what the nitty-gritties thereof. And this evening we're going to bring you up to speed in terms of exactly what we're talking about. So hang 10. Our guests this evening, as we always do, we do have a guest or two, and today, this evening is not different at all. We've got Charmaine Mabuza, and she's the chairperson of the SA Board for Sheriff, and I've given you a clue in terms of what we're going to be talking about this evening. It's a very good evening to you, Charmaine. Welcome to the show. Good
evening, Karabo, and good evening to all the listeners, and thank you for having us on your show today.
There we go. And she's not all by herself, really. And he's the sheriff in Pretoria Central. Tata Taka, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence, sir.
Morena, thank you so much for having me in the studio.
All right, there we go. So, I've been we welcome all those languages. So, if you do want to engage us in the language of your choice, we would love to hear from you. As I always say, that South Africa is a versatile country, so we definitely would love to hear from you. 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. That's the number to dial if you want to chat to us this evening. Would love to hear some of the questions that you're having. Otherwise, you can hook us up on Facebook at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. If you're a Twitter person and you would like to tweet us, hey, go for it. Twitter handle at DOJCD_ZA, at DOJCD_ZA. That's our Twitter handle. 0123488 0800, I beg your pardon, 0800 142 446. That's our telephone number. So what exactly are we talking about? You're probably wondering this evening. All right, this evening we're talking about the issue study sheriffs in South Africa. We're going to unpack what their roles are, their duties as well, to educate. We would like to bring ourselves up to speed in terms of the rights of the citizens in dealing with sheriffs. Probably you have encountered before in your life a sheriff, or maybe you will in the future. We'd like to bring you up to speed in terms of your rights as far as dealing with them. The role of the South African Board for Sheriffs, which Charmaine represents this evening. We're going to be touching a little bit on that as well. And how about we highlight the importance and the successes of transforming the sheriff's profession. Wow. Now, this is going to be a big one, and we'll get to hear about that. So, let's talk. Let's talk about the sheriffs. Who are these people, Lapem Zanzi?
Thank you so much once again for having us. Firstly, just to outline who are the sheriffs. Sheriffs are appointed by the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. They are independent and impartial officers of the court. They have specific acts to comply with and magistrates and Supreme Court rules of the court to comply with, and they are actually regulated by the South African Board for Sheriffs, and there are a number of commitments that we expect as a board from a sheriff, and I'll elaborate a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. And normally we hear about issues such as jurisdictions. This is not within our jurisdiction, and I wonder if the same applies to the sheriffs as well. Maybe you can jump into that one there. Something sheriffs in terms of where they can operate and where they cannot operate, because your title here stands, you are the sheriff in the Pretoria Central. So probably there's quite a few of them.
No, certainly. Look, a sheriff is appointed for a very specific area, which is called a specific jurisdiction, and he cannot go beyond that jurisdiction. Just like in any other, situation in the country where you have parameters within which to act. The sheriff is appointed to act in a specific area, and he cannot jump over that area. If he jumps that area, then he is out of order. He is not performing his duties in terms of the law.
We're talking about the appointments of these sheriffs. Would you like to add something, Shemaine?
Yes, I was just going to add to what Tata Seboka has said. There's 384 magisterial districts in South Africa, of which 50 are sub-districts and 90 are branch courts, and 230 are periodic courts. So those are the jurisdictions that sheriffs have within, to operate in. Yes.
Now, these jurisdictions, why are they there? Is it because we want to control, or is it because we want to make the job easier, that we don't find one sheriff in Gauteng and then the very next day they are down in the Eastern Cape and back again, go Free State? Why are they given specific areas in which they need to operate in? Is there a specific reason, Dr. Swoga?
Sure. There has to be limitations. Look, the responsibility of a sheriff, is very huge, and it cannot be exercised in the whole of the country. Mm-hmm. It has got to have specific limitations. You have limitations so that you can give quality service to the people. Otherwise, if I'm in Pretoria Central and then I've got to go to Johannesburg, then I've got to go to Vereeniging, then I've got to go to Durban and that sort of thing, it is too much for me. So the country, just like the courts, Shemaine has just recently said something about, the magisterial districts.
Right.
Every sheriff in the country is appointed to a specific magisterial area. Obviously, the magisterial areas are quite huge. Within a magisterial area, you can have one or more sheriffs, depending on how busy that magisterial area is. If you take, for example, the whole area of Pretoria. Pretoria has got about 8 to 10 sheriffs because of the enormity of the work that is carried out by the sheriff.
Right. Okay. 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. You probably are going to laugh at me with what I'm going to ask you now, but that's okay, because it's a question that came to my mind, and I thought, maybe should I ask it or maybe should I not? But maybe it's appropriate for me to ask it, because I might not be the only person in South Africa who's thinking like that. I can't want. Let's not confuse the word sheriff in Wegi. Or are they the same? And then but on a serious note, when you come across the word sheriff, in this instance, what we're talking about this evening, is it different to the sheriff that the one in TV, or there's a new sheriff in town, and the type of thing? Yes, that one there, or the one with guns blazing. I know some people are laughing like, Karaba, how could you ask a question like that? But look, I mean, I'm telling you right now, there are people that could possibly be thinking or asking that question. I don't really like the differences of those two. Just very quickly, and then, you know.
Well, there is a major difference in what we see in the movies and what in the American context versus the South African context in what the sheriff has done. Firstly, the work description is very different in the sense that we as the South African sheriffs are specifically just meant to do a certain aspect of the entire process in terms of the legal process that is, the court order, in other words. We are executing only the orders of the court.
All right.
Well, and the ones in the movies, you'll see them with the guns and they're like a policeman, which is then gives a different perception of what sheriffs are really.
Yeah.
So that's fundamental difference. We are the officers of the court executing the instructions or the orders of the court here in South Africa. We don't do the cross-the-board policing like in American movies as such.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, look, you can say that a sheriff is a civil law officer of the court. When you watch the movies, you see the sheriff with a big head, with dark glasses and with guns and big boots.
Driving a Valiant.
And that sort of thing. It's a completely different sheriff. If we are in South Africa, we talk about a civil person representing the judiciary in the country, carrying out his duties in terms of the law of the country.
All right. Very, very interesting. In fact, I was watching another movie the other day and the sheriff popped out. There was a couple of FBI agents who came to assess the crime scene. And I grew up when I was now with them black Ray-Bans and them black suits. And I was like, we want to assess this area. And the sheriff is like, you're not going to do that. This is my town. That type of thing. 18 after 6, 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. We've got a listener there who's very, very loyal. And they've got a question or two. Let's speak to Defender. Defender, good evening to you. Sawubona Baba, you get the first caller of the evening award. What is your question?
Like mhlambe nabafika bo sheriff, let me firstly appreciate and lesihlobo lesikhona ukuthi uma bafika bo sheriff bathola mhlambe kukhiwe eketeni uyabona badokuseva somebody othi bafika bayibeka whatever letter bayibeka egatini azange ayibone but the fact ukuthi iphumile but lowo muntu loyo babuya basatodla indoda yakhe ukuthi azange responde mara azange ayithole personally ufuna lokwathi ukuthi ufuna bakunike ngesandla or mangayifaka anywhere as long as bayilethile ekhala lakho yini.
Thank you so much, Defender. Ngiyabonga baba. 19 after 6, 0800 142 446. Keep those social media questions coming through on our Facebook page at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and otherwise you can hook us up on Facebook as well. I beg your pardon, on Twitter as well. DOJCD_ZA, DOJCD_ZA. If you've just joined the show, welcome to it. We're 19 minutes into it, and our guest this evening, Rachel Nalemesha Main Mabuza. She's the chairperson of the South African Board for Sheriffs, as well as Ntate Thaka Saboka. He's the sheriff in Pretoria I beg your pardon, Pretoria Central. I'm very much exposed to Pretoria East, hence as my tongue slipped there. The sheriff in Pretoria East in terms of auctioning houses and all of that stuff, and which is one part that I would like us to talk about.
Sure.
Very interesting one, in fact, when it comes to property management and property and so forth. So I'm looking forward to that one there as well. All right, there's a question from Defend, and he wants to know, this one is a very interesting one because I always hear the term or the phrase, you have been served. And that comes when the sheriff is now in contact with the person that needs to serve or that need to serve. And that phrase, normally I hear it once the signature's been put on the document or on the receipt type of thing. Now, Defender wants to know, how does it work in terms of the absentia of the person that needs to be served? So if I get in the air and if I get pussy or something like that, or how important is it, or do you have to even serve hand to hand? How does it work, that process of serving?
I will just take it briefly. According to the rules of the court, you can affix a process. A process. Let me give you a typical example. You find that a person has gone overseas for months, or he's deliberately evading the sheriff. He locked the door. He's not there. So there is certain processes that you can affix to the door. But we discourage that. We'd like to encourage our sheriffs to try and serve in person. For instance, the rules of the court, in a case of a divorce where it changes the status of a person, they have to serve in person in such instances. But there are instances, yes, where definitely you cannot get hold of the defender, if I may explain it that way, and they would have to get through an affixing. But we really try and discourage that in that case. And maybe I'll get to you, Siboka, who's
sure. You see, as Shabin has indicated, under normal circumstances, the rule is that when you serve a process, when you serve a court order, you have got to serve it specifically on a person.
Right.
And if you go there for the first time, maybe for the second time or so, and you find that the person is not there,
right,
you have a duty to make sure that the message arrives home. And what you then do in terms of the authorization of the rules of court, then you can place that order of court, either on the wall or on the fence, or if there's a post box, in the post box, and that sort of thing. Now, what you then have to do, you have to respond as quickly as you possibly can. You see, because sometimes people pick up, the order of court, they see it and say, no, they did not serve it on me. You see, but the court allows that if you have made an attempt and you don't find a person, then you have a duty to pin the order on the wall or before the door.
Are those people served when it's like that?
Certainly.
Yes.
Are they served?
Yes, certainly.
But then issue a signature, it's an guy, because as far as I know, and I'm speaking under correction, and probably the listeners are asking the same thing as well, we need to sign, I have received it, or we don't have to sign.
Not necessarily.
Not necessary, because in the return of service, what we call a return of service that we have to give, you would indicate that I went there day 1, I went there day 2, this person was not there and such a time. So there's a track record of how many times you've made that attempt, and therefore you can then proceed to do that. Because, for instance, Garabi, you'll get people that can see the sheriff through the window, but they just simply would not receive the document.
So basically, they don't want to stretch their hand to
stretch their hand, which would have made it much more easier, and they would be explained their rights, and it's not a process. But given how difficult they would make it for a sheriff to execute their duties, then we are able to affix it to the door. There is in terms of the court.
Karawa, can I expatiate a bit? And
yes, sir,
it's
please.
Not only that. You see, we have a duty to make sure that the court processes have been served. Sometimes if you deliberately avoid the service, there are other processes which take place after that. For example, if we are satisfied that we have not been able to serve you, then we, at a certain point, we go to the newspapers. We publish in the newspapers that there has been a judgment against you. You see, you can pick it up at that point if you did not pick it up at the first point. In some instances, very rare instances, you do what is called a dictal citation.
Right.
You go to a place, you don't find a person, maybe he's not in the area or he's not in the country. Then you go to the newspapers. Then you publish that there is an order which has been issued by the court against that particular person. But the length and short of it is that it is possible you can place an order of court on the wall, in front of the door, or in the post box.
Wow, okay. There you go, Defender. Hope that answered your question. Let's go to other callers in the Free State. Speaking to Mutlatupa. Mutlatupa, good evening to you. Poto, how are you?
Ke ne ke botsa mme le ntate ka mono gore na ke o baneng di sheriff tsena di sena uniform ya bona e kgethang ba nne ka fumane ma itshwetse ka tiki a di tse mo ka shop o tla bona tapo ke wana o etsa gore ba ntse ba re sa ile simata re ke hape go tsengwe ya ka ntate ne go re tsengwe ya ka o tsetela ke ne ke batla go tseba gore na ke se tlamo sa gore le bo sheriff ntate ba a ba tsitsa go lo ha go na re le batho ba bolele gore motho gore ha re o tshwanetse go etse bonnete ba gore
go na le mo o ngotseng tabeng e go fa yona style ba like mohlala nna ba ile ba re ke tlase ba ile ba re ke etse reminder phone nya.
Okay. All right, Kelabo Mhlatupa, I really appreciate it. We'll definitely deal with those questions. I've got a Facebook question, and thank you so much. Those Facebook questions are coming through. And this one is from John McMillan. Is a sheriff a full-time employee? A full-time official of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Now, what qualifications is needed for one to become a sheriff? I would love to know that myself. I think I'm in the wrong career. And thanks, John. I really appreciate that. John was going to listen on the radio. Thank you so much to Radio Alpha for having helped John to really get this message. I really appreciate it. Coming up next, I'm going to be telling you about the 25th anniversary celebration. So don't go away. We're going to be dealing with that. Okay, let's deal with the questions. The first one, presentation, but they will tell you. I mean, there's food in the studio that tells you already. I hope my producers are not going to kill me for that. But a presentation is everything. Chef.
Sure.
But presenter, when you're presenting food, the way you present it is everything. Mhlatupa says, uniform of it. How important is it? Why don't we have uniforms? Mhlambe, he would like the sheriffs to be in uniform so that maybe for easy identification of them of some sort. Angas.
Well, look, Karabo, and I think that's a good question from Mhlatupa. The first thing is that when a sheriff approaches any member of the society, he must look decent. He must be presentable, That's the first thing. It may be that he will not have a specific uniform like the nurses or like the police and that sort of thing. But the crucial thing that the sheriff must have is an identity document. Every sheriff, whenever he approaches an individual in the society, he must produce an identity document which has been issued to all the sheriffs by the South African Board for Sheriffs. And I'm sure the chairperson of the board can briefly expatiate on that.
Shami?
No, correct. We issue out identification badges to all our sheriffs, and they're also trained how to approach their the members of public, whether through the language that they would explain their rights, and in the manner to encompass human rights and dignity. So those are important to us, the interface between our sheriffs and the members of the public.
All right. You see, legally, and my uncle always says, when you're dealing with legal issues, there are always technicalities and one needs to be very careful. He always likes mentioning that. I'm going to throw something and I want to see, right. Now, if a sheriff comes, do I have the right to turn them away and say, this is a disrespect to my dignity, to my person? I will not accept any documentation that's been given out by yourself because of the state of soberness or drunkenness that you're in. Can I do something like that? Can I turn a sheriff away based on that, which I just said now, and many other reasons?
Firstly, it's very important the way what we tell our members of the public, because what we do know is that we don't want to have an untested matter to say I turned the person away because they were drunk. However, if a member of the public is able to tell us of the behavior of that sheriff or that deputy sheriff, and I say to raise that complaint to the board,
right,
we deal with each one of those complaints. And if any rudeness, any way of, it's not just a matter of drunkenness. The reason why I'm cautious to say about drunkenness, and I'm saying because members will simply say that person was drunk, whereas it's not the case. It's a very subjective, and we've got to subject that person to a disciplinary hearing or an investigation. So it becomes a big issue. But yes, if there's any disruptive or ill-mannered or behavior that is not in accordance to our code of conduct, because we've got a code of conduct which regulates how sheriffs and their deputy sheriffs should behave, and every one of our sheriffs have been trained in accordance and what to expect in terms of the rules and our code of conduct.
All right, awesome. 6:30 today is 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. Twitter handle DOJCD_ZA. Facebook, it's going to be at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Let's go to Live FM. These are the guys who are making it possible for this show to go out to their listeners as well, doing an absolutely amazing job. The guys back on Live FM. Tsepo's listening to your radio station. Thank you so much. Tsepo. Lega ndade. Hey. Hey, khotso ndade.
Vela o go di si ani tla o deliver sa mono wena ba tla ba ikentse envelope ba ba isia aba sa o tsolo wetsala.
All right, we did touch on that a little bit, but don't worry, Tsepo, we're going to answer it again because, you know, in radio they say that every 5 minutes you get a new listener. Tsepo Tayaraba Putso, how is it the only one that you have?
No, Putso, because in French, you know, dealing to someone I teach and I think how tall is it thing at Kuntunguan? I think one who says I own a Russian dog upon a Maya, and then about Moabai saying, I will see I saying, or All
right. Thank you so much, Tsepo. I appreciate it. All right. We did touch on it, but I mean, just for the sake of Tsepo and other listeners who've just joined us in, and that is Swoga.
Well, you know what, Karabo? Normally, when the sheriff serves a summons, it's just as bad as it is coming from the court. You see, you don't want to create confusion to the members of the public, and then you put the summon in an envelope. You take the summon as is and you present it to the person. That person can there and then immediately read it and understand what it is all about. You see, so we normally don't put the summonses in the envelope.
As you've received it from the court, that's how it's going to be presented.
Yes.
All right, absolutely awesome. Let's go to Tabiso from Postmansburg. Tabiso? Eitara.
Yeah, Tabiso Musikana mo Postmansburg.
Outwe. Putso how you that?
Yeah, ke tlo go tsa potso sa tsamaisane le series. Ke tlo go tsa potso le ba ganele nna Tabiso personally ne.
Okay.
If ke tshwarwa something, ke tlo go dira example. If ke tshwarwa ka dikata, ke ne ke deliver dikata somewhere. How else? Yeah.
It's an unusual example, but go for it, Tsepo, Tabiso.
Yeah, ke tshwarwa maybe ka dikata ne. Ha ke tshwarwa ka dikata mo tsele ha ke tsena go khotse ke bara kere ke batla dikata tsene ke tshwarwa ka tsone ha ke tsena go khotse dikata tsewa dinyeletse ga ke itse go paki jwa tsone go bokae kampo nkwele ke tshwere ka yone mo crossing ya olifazu nkwe wa ka ke bone gore ke ne bo paki go khotse gore o ntshwaretse dikata ha lo tsewa dinyeletse a khotso ya go mpona molato na go sina bopaki jwa gore ne ke tshwere ka dikata tsewa mare go sina mo ditlhagelang tena
ene wena wa di batla
ene ke di batla ke batla go nna le bopaki jwa gore ke tshwere ka dikata mare ke se dikata ga di wa ba
Postmansburg being represented by Tabiso this evening. Thank you so much, Brother Tabs.
Thank you, my bro.
Eitara. Barlo hodu lo swarwa ka morwalo, you know? Tabiso are yalo ga le tshwara with my things, with my possessions, with what I say to my assets. That is what we could raise in that. I don't even need to repeat that question.
Well, you know what, when Tabiso. Firstly, there are two processes of bringing the person before the courts. The first one is a criminal process or it's a civil process. Now, your question falls within the realm of the criminal process. We as sheriffs, we deal with matters which are civil matters. Now, but to help you with your concern, when you are arrested with dagga, that dagga is kept safe and it is going to be produced before the magistrate, before the court. You see, as an exhibit of what you have been arrested with or what you have been arrested for. It's exactly the same as the ship that you are referring to. If you steal a ship, that ship will be brought before the court as an exhibit. So there's no way in which they can go and take something else from somewhere and bring it there. They will put the thing and in the way that they found it in you. If it was in a paper bag, they will keep that paper bag. If it was in a paper, they will keep it in the paper. Obviously, if they take it out of your pockets, they will keep it safe somewhere.
Thank you so much. Ntate Seboka, 0800 142 446 or 800 142 446. I wonder which part from Soweto Dumisani is calling from. Dumisani?
Yeah,
I'm
a deputy sheriff myself, more Soweto West.
Out here. Tata Dumisani, here are your colleagues listening.
Hello?
Your colleagues are listening, sir. What is your question?
No, I don't have a question. I'm a deputy sheriff myself. I just want to educate our people, especially from my area, which we realize from the sheriff's office, they start hiding themselves. And then what they're not aware of is that these things just add on their debt as well. And then they just should ask the sheriff to identify themselves so that they could take care of that document immediately as soon as they receive it.
All right. Dr. Dumisani, we've got two guests in the studio who have been invited to come and do the show. We're not voluntary. You've picked up your phone and you felt, you know what? Here's my colleagues and I'm going to help them. Let me do this. I want you to just give a word of motivation to the listeners, some advice to the listeners when as a deputy sheriff in terms of your experiences that you've had in the past. No, you know what? As our work, the sheriff, this is what we see. But let's do this. Let's not do this. Just very quickly, because I really appreciate the steps that you've taken. You've realized or your colleagues are on there and you would like to help them. So just a word of advice from you. Date Dumsani?
Yes, my advice to the public would be do not hide yourself when you see the sheriff. The sheriff is not the enemy. The sheriff is there to make you aware of the things of how far you are with yourself. You should just, instead the sheriff is the bridge to you to it's another form of a bridge that you can use in order to settle that gap then. Because most people what have experienced is as soon as they realize that you're from the sheriff's office, they start hiding, they will tell you the person is unknown at the but when you walk out and just right next door, they'll point at the same person you were speaking to that this is the person you're looking for.
Right. Dumisani, let me thank you for your time, sir. Let me thank you for the powerful words that you've given. Let it be known, look, all the South African Board of Sheriffs, or you've got guys like Dumisani, who's not only a listener, but Ufila, you know, when matters are spoken about and he is part of that, he wishes to also, you know, give a bit of a word of advice, and we really like to thank him. Let it be recorded for this. 22 minutes just before 7 o'clock, 0800 142 446.
Rona le kae?
Rona nka ba le kwele ga nka ba le rona le se sengwe putshwa lena re
nna be ke nyaka o checka gore re fela sheriff a tlo a toucha dithuto tša gago o tla be o diregileng before a etla ne? All right, thank you so much. Ke a leboga wena Phuthi o theleditše Moletši FM. Re a leboga batho ba Moletši FM ka karolo e leng gore la etšea mo dikgwetšong tša rena tše re bana le tšona beke ka beke. Nke reng go lesiba gona mo Pretoria e bjale lesiba ke sa tsebeng gore na ke tla bolela Sepedi sa nnete goba ke tla bolela yona bolela ya ka line rena or something. Lesiba le kae na? Wa wena ke bona o bolela Sepedi sa borena puša lena re
nna ke re the sheriff board I thuse batho ka nix. Sheriff board is just a toothless body that would always send you acknowledgement ya mail wa gago gore they are still investigating. Never would do anything else from them. I lost more than 2 million rands worth of property. I've been behind the sheriff board, but they always say, we got your letter and then we are still investigating. And on the point, dear sheriff, the rules of the court, due process must have been followed before anything mutating. But the sheriff, they are doing that from their offices. They don't bother going out. They just sit in their office and write a return pasted on your door. They attach things. They know every house mortgationing in a microwave TV. They attach those things from their offices. They never know. If you have two of each matume microwave, lima busela microwave, they have microwave. Which one? But they were not there. So justice most of the cases succeeded did the default judgment because that's how I say it.
All right. Ntate Lesiba ke tlo kgopela hore o squire felo. I want all right, I want my producers to keep you online because I would like to engage a little bit, but the rules of engagement, we gave you a bit of time to explain that the Lesiba when they do explain from their part as well. Let's not, it's not a debate really, but I'm trying to find middle ground. Okay, stay on the line, Dr. Lesiba. Would you like to respond, Shamaine?
Sure, I'd really like to respond to the caller who says the board didn't respond to the matter. They just acknowledged that. Firstly, we would like you, as Garaba has said, to take your number, and I'd like to really look at that matter personally, because in most cases, and I'm not saying in your case, please understand that if the results are not necessarily what you want it to be, you find that you don't accept the institution that is carrying out or giving that governance. Understanding that the sheriff has only to operate within the four corners of that document, and it's in most cases it comes in defendants are hearing it for the first time, and it's a very painful process, and it's usually got to do with issues regarding money, and we understand that one. But my point that I'm making is that if there's a matter that you feel that has not, you have the right to appeal to the board. There's a process thereon. In fact, there's a whole structure on how complaints are heard at the board. They just not heard about one individual person. They are heard, firstly they're evaluated, then they go before committees whether to evaluate it, and so a committee with attorneys, members of the public. There's a whole committee that evaluates any complaints that come in. Once there's merit, then the board takes forward. If there's no merit, then they investigate, and in fact they will give you feedback. That's the process, and we've ensured that there's a closure and monitor those complaints, and we're very diligent about that matter. What we find is that if the process is not necessarily the outcome that you want, then you are obviously aggrieved in some manner or the other. But I can assure you that we look at every complaint and we take it very seriously, and I'm again saying that if there's a matter, we'd look at it again.
So Shamaine, you guys are quite open to engage with Lesiba. Lesiba, here's an invitation. Things are not sounding very comfortable for you right now, but what we would like to do, as human beings, especially government, key issue redress is one of the Batupele principles that is very, very important. They're saying they would like to engage with you and see where things went wrong and go into investigations and all sorts to see, or maybe there are some things that you did not understand or things didn't go properly, so they can see how they can help you. Are you open to that, Dr. Lesiba?
Yes.
I'm glad that you said yes. All right, what's going to happen? God, our producers have got your numbers. All right, our guests this evening, during the course of the week, and then and then let's see how we can sort this matter out. Is that please give me a call and let me know how it's going, and I will ask you guys to do the same as well. Just keep us up to date, and the listeners would like to know, I'm sure, in terms of how that's going. And Dr. Lesiba?
Yes.
Galabo. There we go. One happy listener. And isn't that what we're all here for? 16 before 7, 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. This is where you get the power station. Yeah, I've never seen such big barking their spina. They barking coolant. Coolant. There's a power station down Kolepalale there. I was there a couple of weeks ago. Ndate Khang. Logonana. Ke kwa ba re go a fisha le phalale ba le ke 36 le go.
Go fisa chiri
a re kwa gore go fisha gona go le file se seng se le ka nyakang gore le se botsishe na.
Ya go file se se ka nyakang gore ke le botsise
a re kwa ge Ntate Khang
ke go ba botsisa Ntate ka Kevin ntsenye if maybe generally somebody following there we sue the other person to the lawyer, ne? Then we pay the lawyer. Then the lawyer told us that we must wait for the sheriff to go and do 1, 2, 3. Then how long it takes
from the lawyer when har patetse ko di lawyering then re emela taba ya di sheriff ntho ke ntho sa nna go kana nganga gore ona le motho a jetse motho o tlhokofetse then re patetse lawyer re batla go itse ha re ya ko lawyer ba re botsa gore no they are still waiting for the sheriff in to go ma sheriff then it's yana go kana nganga is what I want to know, my brother.
Yeah, Dr. Kang, let me just ask, or what is it that the sheriff is going to do? Are they going to issue out summons? Zahore, you being sued? What is it that what were you told what the sheriff is going to do?
Oh, okay, I we are going to the lawyer and say to the lawyer that no, we sue other person that he must get out to that house because he's not belong to that house. I think we are mutu mu to kufisi.
Right.
Na bidiwa bongile diviso. Then on utu kufisi. Then ya no. They kwa lawyer or no okay. So this bata remesi ma sheriff ki khaleri shile ma sheriff. So ke batla utlwisisa sentle hore it's a young, it's a
Right. Thank you so much. We've got your question.
Well, thank you, KB.
Yeah, about the molo palale mo tatakela etela gape tshile lengwa ka.
Ori etele o ta amohela ke bo breezer, ke nna breezer.
Ke tlo ema go stop signing sela sa kopela Nandu se ke tla go etsa go.
Thank
you so much. Thank you so much for that. 0800 142 446 13 before 7 o'clock. Arengo Tembisa, just around the corner from the airport. Johannes.
Hello, how are you, sir?
Good, and you? Laka. What is your question, sir? Yes.
Ntate ha o dula ka muntu nona a usetsa o re wa bua ba sa respond na ntse jalo ka yo le etsa jwang.
Okay, who's not responding now?
Re a utsia ha o moholo ka muntu mochana wa utswa ka muntu.
Right.
Mare ha o re wa bua o wrong.
All right. Okay. And is that the only question on Aliona?
Enwe hape o sebedisana le batho barki entering committee. The entering committee di ja tšhelete ha di patale batho in the right time and ba bolelo kana go tšhelete ha yo tšhelete e teng o le sebetsa.
Entering committee.
Yes, sir.
I will tell you right now. But okay, by the time entering seg
entering committee ernan leona re be le mo plekeng enngwe wana mo le mo teng mo.
Right.
Mo le teng mo t-shirt. So entering committee is a challenge I patale batho. And how do you run that?
Okay, all right. Interim committee. Okay. Okay, Dr. John is just stay on the line. Okay, are those the only questions, Joe Nalinzona?
It's on that sorry. Telling it that it was a hazard well responsibility for Zona.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Tulane, that an interim committee, I would like us to note it down. That is All right, let's go to Tulane Mpangeni. Tulane?
Nomzane yaphela.
Ngiyaphela baba kunjani?
Hayi ngiphile kahle kakhulu.
Hayi ke sizoyifaka ebondeni ke umbuzo wakho uthini?
No manje ngifisa ukwenza imibili nje kwisihambeli sakho lapho. I'm listening for iQuiz FM elapha na eTranscorp.
Hayi siyabonga Khwezi, siyabonga.
Yeah, imbuzo enginayo la icontent yami isekutheni ngeze kanjani la eSouth Africa inkantolo zikwazi ukushushisa nokugweba ama-juvenile labo bantwana abasele iminyaka ephansi nganoba maningi ama-cases la othola khona ukuthi umntwana ubulele uma ena-17 16 nje ebulele enze icala elifanayo nelingenziwa wena uthola ukuthi uyadedela ukuthi akahambe ayoba ngaphansi kwesandla sabazali engaboshwa kenziwa lutho maningi amacala anjengalawo futhi iy'ngane lezisentshwa kakhulu abantu abadala ihambe zobulala abantu intshontshe zenza amacala anzima kakhulu kodwa manje ekugcineni usuku awaboshwa ngithi leli sula ngithi yini lingafani namazwe anjengoswazi nobotswana nase-USA la ingane khona eboshwa khona mari yenze icala njengaleli. Okwesibili ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi kahle kahle lento kuthiwa i-legal aid board inamsebenzi muni la uthola khona umuntu kuthiwa umele khona ummeli wamahala ekugcina kosuku uma emele lo ummeli wamahala lo muntu ubuka ukuthi ngempela ummeli nohlobo ekuthini icala ngase ngeliwile yini umbaba umsholozi Nqamalala uJacob Zuma president ngesikhathi enamacala enamthathanga ummeli wamahala kodwa wathenza ummeli uJJ Camp wayengamsebenzi ngani ummeli wamahala uma uthi uyasiza mina ngibona ukuthi kukhohlisa abantu ukuthi ummeli ama-legal aid board ayasiza nganoba ekugcina kosuku abantu bayaboshwa yize ewunayo lo mmeli lo.
Ngiyabonga baba, ngiyabonga baba Thulani. Sibonga crazy futhi that you guys are helping us out in terms of ukuthi uhlelo lethu lifike kubantu benu laba base Transcorp and all those surrounding areas. We really appreciate it. 9 minutes before 7 o'clock. Let's start with this one, right? Okay. Thulani wants to know South African courts and juvenile sentences. You know, it's a pity that Thulani missed one of the shows that we had where we were talking about Child Act. And but I'm not going to go into that. Would you like to jump in, Charmaine? Because it's got to do with the whole Child Act and how juveniles are sentenced and so forth.
Well, firstly, I just want to pick up from what he has said about the Legal Aid Board. I think it's an important imperative of our constitution about access to justice for everybody.
Right.
And it is a way to ensure that everybody is heard. And even if you can't afford a lawyer in layman's term, at least you can get one through the Legal Aid Board. That's the first point I'd like to point out there. And I'll ask Mr. Siboko to take on the Child Protection Act. But before that, Garabo, there was a question that was raised by one of our listeners. What do you have to do to be a sheriff, and what training do you necessarily have to do? Maybe I can also take that.
Yeah.
Firstly, the Act is very clear. It prescribes what you need to do to become a sheriff. It is clear that firstly, you've got to be fit and proper. In other words, you've conducted yourself, you're historical, you've got no criminal records, and you have to have a minimum standard of a standard 10, and we're busy prescribing further requirements together with the board and the Department of Justice. Over and above that, you have to undergo certain training which the board has prescribed, which is really job specific, which has been designed by the board to enable sheriffs to become sheriffs and operate as sheriffs. Right. And the other question that was asked, are we part of the justice system, or are we employed full-time by the Department of Justice? No, we are independent, impartial officers of the court. In other words, we operate our independent little officers on our own, not linked up or reporting to the justice as in justice, or get paid in terms of the payroll. However, we work very closely with the different courts. For instance, we are part of the committees as sheriffs, so sheriffs have to be part of that committee, which does case flow management, and that's the role of the sheriff, and how we position the sheriff as the South African Board for Sheriffs.
Okay. Then there was another question just before you answer.
Sure.
The other one, how long does it take?
Yes.
Yeah, let's tackle that one. How long does it take?
You know, Puti, there has been quite a few questions. One was from Puti, and then the other one was from Kang.
Right.
Then you had this one from Johannes. Now, Puti wanted to find out, what happens before the sheriff can attach the property. So in all fairness to her, there are processes before the sheriff can come into the picture. You see, the first thing what normally happens, and I must say up front that these are not the responsibilities of the sheriff, but the processes that must take place before the sheriff can come onto the scene is that, if a person owes or has got any obligation that he has not satisfied, the opponent will first send a letter of demand, to that person. And if the person then fails to respond to the letter of demand, the affected person goes to court, and then when he gets to court, the court gives or grants him a summons, an order. You see, and once the court has issued an order, then it goes to the sheriff for the sheriff to go and serve, that order. Now, the Puti, if he gets an order from court through the sheriff, she must satisfy. that order. If she does not satisfy that order and pay if he has got to pay, then the sheriff moves to the next stage, which is the attachment of her assets. If the assets have been attached and still she does not respond, then the sheriff can then remove those assets. And I'm sure Charmaine can come in.
Just at that point, when the member of the public or the defendant, when they receive their first summon, that's why we always encourage the members of the public to not run away from a sheriff, because they would know that we will tell them, respond within 7 days, and in that period you can go and make a settlement in terms of the debt. You can say, go and make arrangements, I'm going to pay it over 3 months. You still have an opportunity at that point of time. Now, what people tend to do at that point, they need to babalega, bevale mnyango, and that's when the matter doesn't get resolved. At that point, you still have the leeway in terms of the law to still settle and make arrangements. Because if you let it go, then it gets to the point of execution, where we've got to take away now your microwave to satisfy, or your TV or your fridge now to satisfy the worth of that writ. And that's where the members of the public need to be aware of and look at that gap and make sure that they really respond to sheriffs so that they can settle their matters at an early stage rather than a late stage, because once an execution happens, it becomes tougher, it becomes harder negotiations for you as a member of the public, or it becomes too late. Right. That's the bottom line.
All right. Did the Kang also came in with a question there?
Sure. Kang wanted to know, how long must a person wait for the sheriff to serve the court process and that sort of thing. In terms of the code of conduct of the sheriffs, as soon as the sheriff has got an order from court which he has got to serve, he must serve it immediately without any undue delay.
Right.
So all the sheriffs know that is the expectation from them. If there is an unnecessary delay, Khan can complain either to the magistrate or to the South African board for sheriffs. But what normally happens, there must be a distinction. There are certain processes which have got to be served on an urgent basis. Mm-hmm. And Khan must indicate that this matter is very urgent. He was talking about death in the family and that sort of thing. Clearly, that's an urgent matter. Now, the turnaround generally of the role of the sheriff in the process, it should be about 3 to 4 days. The document comes to the sheriff if it's a normal matter.
Right.
That matter should not take much time in the sheriff's office. It should at most take about 3 to 4 days. Right. If it's urgent, then they must indicate that we need to do it today, here and now.
Okay. Then there's a Facebook message that came in a bit earlier from Blessing Matlasela, and he was not quite happy with what he was told by one of the sheriffs, or what he heard perhaps a sheriff has done, which is an issue where a sheriff has forced, well, it actually happened to them. A sheriff has forced them to put a reminder on the cell phone of the date of appearance go court. He was not happy with that. Are they supposed to do that? Isn't there something that they must issue as a reminder, or are there means of having, once you've actually served, and then you can remind the people that you served, your court date is coming in 2 days or in a day? I'm just trying to think, because I think this is where the question is going.
No, Karabu, there isn't the law doesn't make provisions for a sheriff to remind a person. Once the document has been served, it's the person's responsibility, because there's many things that there's many permutations once you've received it. You may settle the debt, you may oppose, it's really up to you to how you take it from the onwards. So I'm not certain in terms of what the reminder in this case relates to, and if anybody has forced anybody, if they've got the details, once again I invite them to please give us the full details and lodge a complaint, because we will analyze it in that context.
All right. Okay.
Sure. No, I think the chairperson has captured it quite well. Sometimes I think the sheriffs put themselves in an unnecessary trouble, bending backwards to try to assist a member of the public, to say, hey, put this thing in your cell phone so that when the day comes, you should not forget you've got to be appearing in court. It has got nothing. It's not the business of the sheriff. Once he has served you and the dates are on the paper in terms of when must you go to court, which court, and that sort of thing. But
isn't it going an extra mile, Shem? I mean,
sure.
There's a guy saying, look, you've been saved, bro, but to make sure things don't go out of the way, your court date is appearing on. I would suggest you put it on your phone.
Precisely.
That's why I was saying, but I'm not sure the context in which this reminder was given to.
Well, the person actually wanted to find out if there are any means that you guys can do from your side, or the sheriffs can do from their side, instead of them saying put a reminder. They're the ones who are perhaps sending a reminder via email of some sort.
No, it's very different. Remember, certain offices once have thousands of processes, but once that order has been done, as I said to you, there's various permutations. You may find that they settle even before that court date,
right?
Or there's many things that can happen before that court date. So it's a very difficult process to manage in itself about reminders. I suppose the sheriff was saying, please remember this date. You must appear in court.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go back to question interim. I don't know if we're going to go back to it just shortly, but let me not keep Johannes waiting for a bit too long. Johannes from Tembisa is on the line, and he would like to chat to us. I believe Johannes is back. Johannes?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Two family, two and so that action we in what infection. And the second point, muchana wa ujeta kamuntu how wa kamuntu wena how na voice ebuang kamuntu.
Let me try. Who are you in that house? Are you a sibling in that house? Is it your house? Is it your parents' house that's passed on? It's a family house.
Yeah,
Melintate. You remember 3 weeks ago, about 3-4 weeks ago, we had a show, More Will and Gadi Will. Was there a particular will that was drafted, or what needs to happen to that house after they've passed on?
Before that they are a with a authority letter. Yahore, Kisia. Banabaga kamuntu so banaba high neritri so we want to talk about certainly true but omoholu mohunna what is not hesu so ne bata zorna we step aside take it from now or as hesu so I want to leave this place it's
all right well Jonas, and I feel for you, my brother, but I feel now it's a bit personal. Can I just propose Riska Dilaga on air? I'll tell you why. I've heard about a similar case, Goma Melody, where it's happening like this, ne? And then it's very hectic. But Jonas, can I ask you Riska Dilaga on air? Can I have somebody give you a call? Baba Tablisa Nanwena in terms of showing you direction, in terms of where to go from here next, and so forth and so forth. Can I do that?
With pleasure.
100%. The Dejuan is from Tembisa is definitely going to get our help. I know of this particular. Well, I've heard about the similar story where parents have passed on, leaving a house behind. No particular will that's been put in place to say it belongs to whoever. Siblings are in war about the house, and so those cases, so they're a bit personal, and I wouldn't want to discuss those on air. But we'll definitely give Johannes his number to the relevant people that can deal with that matter. All right, again, he was the one who was talking about the interim issue.
Look, Karabo, I think the questions that Johannes have raised are not strictly speaking, the sheriff's, challenges or problems, if you like. I think they are more of a social nature.
Right.
He was asking about, theft in the house.
Right.
Well, that's at the extreme beginning of the whole process of the justice system, because the sheriff comes right at the end. If there's theft by his niece or his nephew in the house and that sort of thing, and he reports the matter and that sort of thing, maybe at the end of the process, that's when the sheriff can come. But where he is now, that's not the role and function and responsibility of the sheriff.
Or maybe
Now,
just to add a bit of color in terms of even referring to the other shows that we've had. In this instance, the sheriff would the sheriff possibly come at a time no longer, for instance, that the journalist goes and lays an interdict the orders given. This is where the sheriff comes, where the interdict is not. Would I be correct to say that? All right. Okay. So I want that one is say where you are now, in terms of what we're talking about today, we will not yet more the sheriff dealing involved. Where they're going to be involved is maybe when you take further actions where longer an order of some sort, whether it be a restraining order or whatever. But once an order is being given against somebody, this is where they will come in as sheriffs to come and serve that particular order to that person. So I'm glad that we've tackled that one in that way. All right, so we are 1 minute in the red, and it doesn't look like we've got callers. Would you like to maybe say parting words, Charmaine?
Yes, I just once again would like to invite the members of the public, if they've got any issues regarding sheriffs, they must feel free to contact our board, which is 0214 4260557 is the telephone number, or the contact or email is contact, which is CONTHCT @sheriffs.org.za, and they must know and be assured that we as a board, we will always look at these complaints in the best possible way. We've got what we call a trust fund, which we will we actually take care of incidents if sheriffs have embezzled members of the public's funds. There's a whole program as the board that we look at from a public's interest perspective.
Thank you so much, I mean, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Karabo. Maybe in conclusion, I should say thank you to colleague Dumisani, for having enlightened the listeners about what the sheriff is all about and that sort of thing.
Oh, yes.
I think what is important is that the members of the public and the community must understand and know what the role of the sheriff is. When the sheriff approaches you as a member of the public, firstly, you must know that he is an impartial messenger of the court. He's in the middle. He doesn't take any sides whatsoever. So
don't shoot the messenger.
Yes, you've got to treat him with respect. You've got to listen to him. If you don't understand, you've got to ask questions, and once he has explained the questions, then you have got to respond accordingly.
Right. Thank you so much. That's the voice here. Seboka. He's the sheriff in Pretoria East. As I beg your pardon?
Pretoria Central.
Yeah, no. I must move, ne? All right, he's the sheriff in Pretoria Central, and Date Takaseboka, as well as Charmaine Mabuza, chairperson of the South African Board of for Sheriff. We'd like to thank you so much for taking time to be with us. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Karabo.
All right, thank you so much to all the radio stations that have partnered with us this evening. We really, really appreciate that. But just before we go, I just want to tell you about something that's very, very important that's going to be happening. The Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Michael Masuta, will deliver a keynote address. This is going to be happening on at the 25th anniversary celebration of the Office of the Family of the Advocate in Kimberley on Friday, the 2nd of October. Now, this thing is going to be happening tomorrow. So if you're living around the Kimberley area, please note this. Now, the Minister will be accompanied by the Premier of the Northern Cape, Ms. Sylvia Lucas, MEC of Social Development, Mr. Mkoli Sokacha, and non-governmental organizations. A few of them will be there as well. Now, the primary role of the Family Advocate's Office to assist parents or parties to reach an agreement on disputes regarding care, custody, and contact of children through unbiased mediation. Now, the Northern Cape Office of the Family Advocate handles most of the cases relating to custody and care of the children. Now, members of the surrounding communities will also have the opportunity to interact with with the minister, with the premier, and the MEC at this particular Imbizo. Now, for more details, as I said, tomorrow, 10 o'clock is going to be happening. You're probably wondering exactly where this thing is going to be happening. Well, the Greenpoint High School, go Kimberley. Greenpoint High School, Kimberley, tomorrow at 10 o'clock. It's going to be happening there. But hey, look, if you want more details, Junior is waiting for your call on 079-192-9194. Let me repeat that number again. It's 079-192-9124. Otherwise, you can email Junior. Go jkotu, jkotu at justice.gov.za. 10 minutes after 7 o'clock, it's time for me to say goodbye. Thank you so much to my fellow colleagues who've made this show an absolutely kick something. It's Zoe on camera 1 as well as Tabs on camera 2. These are the guys that are making it possible that this show Diba published on what do you call it now? What do you call it, Debo? YouTube. There we go. Right. So those two people coming from our video unit, we really, really appreciate you guys. Brareji sitting on telephones. Stonito making sure that the connection between our studios and the satellite and the studio, your studio as a radio station, is one that's unbreakable. So Stonito handling our technical connection there and our sound, as well as Komodo making sure Facebook messages coming through to our side, we're getting them and we're responding to them. Today, by the way, we just laid our cousin to rest, and Bamaluka, we are with you in those trying times that you are facing. So thank you so much for everybody to having come through to be part of this show. All right, let's sign off. Thank you so much, Lawrence. Thank you as well, making sure that every show happens as well. Right, Stolana Samapil Matabel Karabalans signing off. Let's meet again the next week, Thursday at 6 o'clock. Ciao.